Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing Team Kings of Games. And as you guys can see, I'm bringing you guys a very competitive Prank Kids deck profile. I'm going to showcase you guys my list, and there's a reason why I built it this particular way. There's a lot of changes that have been made, particularly to my list, including basically, as you guys can see here, I integrated hand traps. Before, I didn't play them really, but we're in a format where an FTK actually exists, and just because an FTK exists, that's why now you will be punished by not playing any hand traps. That's the only time I feel like it's necessary. You guys hear me say this all the time. The only time you absolutely have to play hand traps is if an FTK exists. Other than that, the board that's made, you still have a chance to break it, and I'd rather break the board than try to prevent it from happening with a bunch of risky 1-for-1s that are really neg ones, hoping my opponent doesn't chain block or having a call by the gate, or hoping that they're not a good player playing a good deck like Emancipators, for example, or Eldritch, thinking that like Valor and Ash is going to do anything. But we're in that kind of format, you guys, so you have to main them. So you guys are going to see my list and why certain cards that used to be in the deck are not there anymore. There's a very good reason. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the main deck, you guys. And I apologize about the Dark Magician video. I don't know why that happened. That's out of my control. That wasn't on purpose. Sorry for anybody that was offended over the fact that my Dark Magician video was just kind of glitchy. So I'm sorry for that. Hopefully moving forward that does not happen anymore, because it hasn't happened for you guys seeing any of my other profiles that I've done online or any of my other replays. You guys know that hasn't happened before, so clearly I wasn't doing it on purpose. But getting into the list, I'm maxing out on every prank kid, 3 of each. These are my children. So if you guys have seen my content, I actually have little stories behind it. Lamses is the oldest. He's like the aggressive one, so he embodies aggression. He's like a Super Saiyan. You see he's going Super Saiyan on you. Roxy symbolizes fun to me. Everything about him is fun, and that's what they're doing. Really, that's how I would say, like, Roxy's is like having fun. So Roxy's, to me, they all symbolize like some kind of emotion. That's how I feel. I'm sure it's not really what Konami intended. And then Dropsies is obviously a crybaby, and one of them I think is gay, honestly. And I think word on the street, that I heard about, in the Vine, was that actually that Dropsies number 1 right here. Where you at, Dropsy's number 1? The very first one before the middle one? Yeah, you could tell that he's a little fruitcake. So, we gotta be careful about him because he's not old enough to understand yet. And then we have 3 copies of Fansies. Fansies, for me, is absolutely freedom. This is fun. This is freedom. Young and wild and free. One has a tornado for legs. Look at them, too. They have Teletubby pajamas. If you guys ever seen Teletubbies when you were a little kid, Teletubby pajamas, look at their onesies. Look at their, well, he's cooler. He has like his jacket's down. Lamses, he's the oldest. I'm telling you, my kid, out of all my kids, he's the oldest. He's the responsible one. I can trust Lamses because Lamses is on point. He's serious. He's normally in the bathroom a little bit too long, so I wonder, what are you really doing in there? And then Fansies, he just likes being outside. The same with Roxy's. I feel like Roxy's and Fansies, they just know how to have a good time. He's a bit too serious and he's a bit too sad, but I will say he's the responsible one. But one thing is, you have to be careful, because if you leave these kids unattended, here's what's going to happen to your house. Look at this. You see this? Now look. This is what happens when you leave these kids unattended. Pranks. Pranks. And there is no plan. What do you mean a plan? They don't have a plan. They don't think that far ahead. No. That plan is definitely for Bow Wow and not them. They don't plan anything. They just do whatever crosses their mind. Okay, so no. And obviously Pandemonium. Yes, are you kidding me? Alright, so back to the list anyways, you guys. Like, Prank Kids are a really strong deck for what it's worth. They're very annoying, very hard to kill, extremely good in time. It could be cheese. Honestly, this is one of the cheesiest decks in time ever. I will say that. But continue with the list. We have 3 Ash. You guys are going to notice I'm playing 3 Ghost Mourner. You could easily cut it down to 2, making your deck list 40. Boom, that easy, right? The reason why I like Ghost Mourner, in fact, better than Effect Veiler, even though Ghost Mourner can be used on normal summon monsters, is because she complements my playstyle. In fact, if you really want to be cheesy, you could play 3 Ghost Mourners and also 3 copies of Nun. The water attribute Ghost Sister, the Ghost Nun, and Morning Dogwood or something like that, because she allows you to gain a buttload of life points, and this is going to burn your opponent. The reason why those complement your playstyle, because you gain life points and you inflict them to your opponent. That's one of your win conditions. You're getting your opponent closer to lethal or the danger zone before you ever get to the battle phase. Something else about this is that you can use this in tandem with your natural plays for your Raigeki on your opponent's turn. So a prime example is basically if your opponent, let's say, just summon a monster. For example, let's just say your opponent summons Golden Lord, right? Off of, let's say, for example, I don't know, like black, or even if it's off Sanguine, however they summon it. Let's just say, just for example, they summon Golden Lord. You could just activate Ghost Mourner targeting him. Who cares about his effect being negated? Then you just use your Raigeki effect of Battle Butler one time, obviously just banishing your your Meow Meow to keep him up, and then you're just gonna get a free burn for 2,500 on your opponent, and then you're gonna burn him again for 500 on their turn. So if you guys are catching my drift, this is really strong because it's like Effect Veiler or Imperm, but also it adds to the burn increments, and just like Trickstars, this deck can get the job done without the battle phase. So this is just one of my personal little techs. It's not really a tech, it's just a hand trap that's not super impactful all the time. People prefer Veiler and Imperm over it. The reason why Veiler and Imperm are better is because they can be used against normal summon monsters, but I still like Ghost Mourner. It's really strong for the way the archetype plays, if you guys are catching my drift. Then I still play 3 Veilers. The reason why I don't play Impermanent off this list, you guys are going to see when we get, but it's a very, very good reason. So continuing with the list, the 1 Instant Fusion. This card was like the most insane 1 card comeback follow-up combo starter, extender, recovery. Instant Fusion was any gap that it needed to be filled, any niche, any void that was empty, like Instant Fusion could fill it. Starter, extender, recovery play, follow-up, everything. Instant Fusion is really crazy in this deck. It's a 1 card Rocket Ride. Rocket Ride is so nice, you guys. A follow-up Rocket Ride kills your opponent like almost every time, because this deck can climb into cards like Access Code Talker for no reason and for free half the time, because normally you're using Doodle Doo to get the cards back anyways. I played 3 polys, but I'm not playing any supplemental engines like the Patchwork or the King of the Swamps anymore, because now the poly with 2 pranks combo, even though it's super nice, and honestly it can end you on the board with Appaloosa and Totally Awesome, or like Totally Awesome plus rank 4 and leaving your Bow Wow on the field, which is like double follow-up plus a Floodgate and a Toad, which is still crazy. That's why poly 2 pranks is still your strongest and most impactful combo. The thing with that combo is now, because you can actually combo off without it, you don't have to maximize on all the cards that get to poly, because you're going to get to your combo whether you draw poly or not, because you play so many ways to get to Prankids. So poly is like one of the stronger 3-ofs in the deck, but now because of how the deck's being played, you don't need polymerization to go off anymore. I used to even play cards like 1 for 1 and even Reasoning. Honestly, if you don't want to play hand traps and you just want pure gas, you can play 1 for 1 because it summons out Fansies. That's still a 1 card combo, basically. Just pitch a hand trap. Reasoning, because all your levels are different, it could summon a Prankid. Because the other way to get your combo is just 2 Prankids on field. It's really hard to do that, you know, without any spells like 1 for 1 or Reasoning or like Poly. But this card, basically now, because the deck's so powerful, when you have Poly, it just feels like you have game, because you already can combo off with 1 card. So even if your opponent has a hand trap for your 1 card combo and you have a poly in hand, just for example, if you wanted to start that line of play just to bait a hand trap, you could poly. Or even another example is when you go into your poly combo and your opponent tries to disrupt it and they have just like double hand trap, you could still just go normal a Prankid and you could still keep going, which is really nice. But poly is super strong in this deck. Like I'm telling you, you're ending on Totally Awesome with Appaloosa, and you have the Pandemonium set with basically, if you open extra pranks in your hand, then yeah, you're good to go. But normally, you're able to summon Weather Washer on your opponent's turn. That's a tempo swing because you're going to rebuild on your opponent's turn. This deck's super reactive. It doesn't tell your opponent they can't play. It just lets your opponent play, and all we're going to do is take a ride with them on the way there. We're rolling with them all the way. So continuing with the list, 1 Terraforming, there's 2 options for it, which is either going to be Plant or also Place itself. You guys are going to see 3 Call Bys. The reason why I still play Call By is because when your hands are more fragile and you only have 1 Prankid, normally when you open poly 2 pranks, Ash and Imperm and Veiler become very, very ineffective because they're not, I repeat, they are not going to stop your turn. They're not. You're already, just by starting with poly and 2 pranks, Ash Blossom can only hit 1 card. You're still resolving multiple effects. Even if they don't Ash any of your Prankids and they just save the Ash for Doodle, you're still going to tribute Doodle and get 2 from Grave. So even if they Imperm or Effect Veiler your Doodle, you just link it to a second copy of Doodle, uses Effect to Tribute, and add from Grave. So when you open poly 2 pranks, your opponent automatically has to have triple hand trap. If they have Ash and Veiler, here's what happens. You go poly into 2 pranks, so they can ash one of your prank kids, they can Valor your rocket ride, and then the other prank kid that was chain link 1 comes out, then you link those both into Doodle Doodle Doo. Now you just play through Ash and Imperm, then you use Doodle to add Pandemonium, then you tribute them and add 2 prank kids. You just got your combo set up playing through 2 hand traps. So I'm telling you right now, when you open poly 2 pranks, your opponent has to literally have triple hand trap. You can even, with a good hand, if one of the first prank kids you summon off with starting is Dropsies, you can also play around a Bureau, because there are good prank kid players that know how to summon totally awesome on their 4th summon. So this deck, I'm telling you right now, it was already good, but this right here is what it was missing. If Meow Meow, I'm telling you right now, if Meow Meow didn't even have an effect, if it was absolutely a vanilla, it would still be insane. Because all it needs to do is just let you link off a prank kid to get them to start swarming the field. That's how it works. But the 3 call buys again are just for the fragile hands. Because if you start with 1 prank kid and that's the only play you have to make, and your opponent has the Ash or the Valor, then it's kind of gonna suck. If they have the Imperm, well, I'm sorry, if they have the Ash, it's gonna suck. Because if they have the Valor, for example, or the Imperm, what happens is you summon Doodle Doodle Doo, you obviously chain block, making him. I always put Doodle Doodle Doo as the highest chain link unless you're playing against a deck that has Gamma, so then you chain block with him. But essentially, or basically, what you really want to do is put Doodle Doodle Doo as the highest chain link, because no matter what chain link you put him in, he can always be Imperm or Valor. So you might as well just keep protecting your prank kids as you're swarming the field. So if you open 1 prank kid and your opponent doesn't have Ash, you don't need to call by, because you're going to link in a Doodle Doodle Doo, your opponent's going to Valor his effect on summon, then you're just going to use your other prank kid to special hit a second copy, then you're going to tribute him. And another cool thing, an interaction that I love doing with this deck, I know I'm supposed to be doing a profile, I'm almost there, but I also want to teach you guys how to play this deck, is this card is the strongest prank kid for setting your plays up, because you have to realize, as you're doing that combo when your opponent has the effect Valor for Doodle Doodle Doo, if one of the prank kids you resolve, like for example, I'm saying when they don't have Ash, call by is really for Ash. If they don't have Ash, call by, you don't even have to use it most of the time. It's really just there for Ash. That's like the only hand trap that can actually stop the 1 card combo. Effect Valor and Imperm just don't really do much. Because also, consider this, when you're resolving Doodle Doodle Doo and your opponent has an Imperm for it, Fanzis gets to send the card Doodle Doodle Doo was going to search in the first place from your deck to your grave. Then you make a second Doodle, tribute it, and add the same exact card Doodle Doodle Doo was going to search in the first place. You just take a shortcut, and now you just add your Pandemonium instead of searching it off Doodle. Sure, you miss out on getting Plan and Pandemonium, but bro, you play through a hand trap and you still get to your combo and you get the card you need to play on your opponent's turn. That's a win-win to me. So cards like Effect Valor and Impermanence actually, and when I say this, this is not even like a lying statement or exaggerative statement, they don't ever stop your combo. They don't ever stop your combo, because every time you're summoning a card like Doodle, another prank kid is on his way to the field. And most importantly, keep in mind that you can always summon a second one whenever the first one gets negated by Effect Valor or Imperm, and then you don't get the effect to search, because you can only use each once per turn. You're summoning it so that you contribute it for cost and get 2 more cards from grave to hand. That's how you go +2 and your opponent goes -1. And also, if you use Fanzis correctly and send the card you were trying to search off of Doodle, now your opponent did not stop what you were trying to do. Basically, the Ash or the Imperm or the Valor that they had in their hand is just literally a neg, you guys. So this is crazy. Like, this deck with this card now is actually like minimum tier 2. When I say minimum tier 2, because it can contend with 2 to 3 hand traps, it can break boards going second, it can main up to 13 hand traps if you really just wanted to call it, like basically, like let's say for example you're like, forget recycling plant and forget set rotation, which are in my list, and forget the second copy of plan. That's room for 3 more hand traps. Now you're playing 11. You could even go further and say, I don't really care about pranks at multiples, I'm just going to play 1. So you can main like 13 or 14 hand traps and still have basically 15 1-card combos. So this deck can be played, and even a higher, in that kind of aspect, it could play even more reactive that way. But I like having a decent amount of combo pieces. I just played 9 hand traps. But continue with the list. The 1 set rotation, the 3 Pandemonium. Set rotation is here because basically it gives me either another copy of Poly, or it becomes, added with the terraforming, 5 extra 1-card combos, because play searches any of these, that's your 1-card combo. And you guys, when we get to place, you guys are going to see that the deck can already chain block, but when you have place up, now you're playing around Gamma, you're playing around Gamma, you're playing around Ash Blossom, you're playing around everything. Like, an Impermanent Veiler suck against this deck. Like, it's so crazy how good this deck is when you know what you're doing. If you're just activating effects just because you can, you're not playing this deck correctly. But resource management is where it's out, because this deck can burn out of its steam really fast. But 3 Pandemoniums, I played double Pranks. The reason why I play 2 Pranks, honestly, is because Cyclone exists. You never ever want to lose out on Pranks. The other thing is, you could honestly play 1. You can play 1, and that's totally fine because it's recurable. But I really do like Pranks. I like also opening it. The reason why Pranks is really strong, and this is going to clarify the reason why I don't play Infinite Impermanence in my list, is because during your in phase, you have a very high probability of drawing a hand trap off of Pranks, because you burn through so many Prankids out of your deck that you're increasing the odds of drawing one of your 9 hand traps off Pranks. So if you draw, let's say you draw Imperm instead of Veiler, this is why Veiler is Veiler instead of Imperm. If you draw the Imperm, you can't play it. So you have a dead hand trap because you control cards. But if you draw Mourner or Veiler, you can play it because you don't need to set it to activate it. That's my main reason for not playing Imperm. When you're going second, it doesn't matter. But when you're going first, it does make a difference because you're able to draw that hand trap when you're in phase. You get 2 chances to draw a hand trap through your main combo. 1 chance off Roxy's and 1 chance off Pranks. But like I was saying, if you want less combo pieces and more hand traps, you can cut Pranks down to 1. You could take out Plant and Set Rotation. That's 3 more hand traps if you really want to go crazy on the hand traps. But I feel like you still have to care about your deck enough, so 9 is enough, honestly. But anyways, so the 2 Pranks, then the 3 Place. This card's insane. It's basically going to be a reinforcement of the army and activation. After that, you're using it to chain block all day, every day. When you have Place up and you're going second, your opponent doesn't have enough spell or trap negates, but they only have monster negates. Their monster negates are going to be very ineffective, because in addition to you being able to chain block with your Prankids, Place now will enable you, especially when you summon Rocket right going second. That's another thing, is you can have his effect to chain block too. You can activate his effect to make him lose that 1000 attack, to put everything beneath the place where the place is the highest card in the chain. So now everything resolves. You get to poke directly in addition to all your burn increments. It's just crazy. But this card, its best effect is after it stays on the field, you're just chain blocking, and the increase is permanent. There have been times playing this deck where I got totally awesome up to 3200 attack on my opponent's turn because I boosted them to 27 on mine, 32 on my opponent's. You keep doing that, you're going to have 5k and 6k Battle Butlers, and then you're going to put Bow Wow Bark pointing to him, then he's going to be at like 7,000. You don't even have to tribute him, you're just attacking your opponent. It's almost like double or nothing. All your monsters are huge. So this card can even make Roxy's into a 2500 beat stick if you leave it on the field. This field spell is nuts, you guys. You just have to play right. I play the Plant. Plant sometimes also, when you have the play where you have multiple Pranks, you want to just use it to bait a hand trap. Because remember, Ash Blossom makes the 1-card combo ineffective. So you activate this, discard for cost, bait the Ash. If they have the Ash Blossom, don't play Called By. The reason being is because if you play Called By, now you're going to lose the card out of your hand, and now you're going to literally have only the cards for the combo at times, and you won't be able to even banish off Roxy's. It depends on your hand, but if you have a 4th card, that means if your 4th card's a hand trap, you have to banish your hand trap off Roxy's if you ever want to resolve his effect that turn. So sometimes you just don't even use the Called By when your hand's going to be that small. But also, if you care more about getting the full Poly 2 Pranks combo than you do about keeping your hand trap as like a contingency, then by all means Called By away. But this card's really also just gonna bait a hand trap going first. The only hand trap that can stop your 1-card combo is Ash, and you can also play around Nibiru or through it, honestly, because you need to get to Doodle Doodle Doo before your 5th summon, so that if you're playing around Nibiru, or you're playing as if your opponent has a Nibiru, you're going to use Doodle to tribute first. You're going to have to use Doodle to tribute first to add, then fusion into the Rocket Ride to reborn him. So that way when your opponent has a Nibiru, you already got the 2 Prankid cards that you needed off Doodle, so when they Nibiru you can still play on your opponent's turn. And that's why normally for your combo, you actually, sometimes when you're playing around Nibiru, you want to use Fansies instead of sending Plan to send a Pandemonium and then use Doodle to add one. So that way when you tribute him, you add Pandemonium, then you activate the second one, you go into Rocket, your opponent Nibirus you, you have the Pandemonium, and you did it the way I was talking about, where you tribute Doodle first to add Pandemonium, then summon him back off Rocket Ride. So when your opponent Nibirus you have Prankid cards and you have Pandemonium, so you're effectively playing through Nibiru, which is really cool. So you could keep going, because also you could activate that same Pandemonium the turn anyways, which is really nice. But anyways, continuing. The last two cards are just the two plans. I play two because you normally need one for the graveyard effect because this deck runs out of resources really fast. That's again another reason why I really like Pranks a lot, because this card helps you in your grind. You're getting a Daigusto Emerald during each of your end phases, and also it allows you to extend because it puts a Prank Kid token on board. You could trade out a card like Plan into an actual body, which allows you to extend more. With the extra deck, one Battle Butler, this is all you need. His effect to destroy is not actually a hard once per turn. His graveyard effect, if he targets a non-fusion engraved especially, that's the only effect you can use once per turn. But Battle Butler is really insane now because you can use Meow Meow for one of his tributes and then use him again for the second tribute. So every time you go full combo now, you get double Raigeki. The same thing with your opponent's back row decks, like for Eldritch, when you nuke their back rows and then they're like, ah ha ha, I have end phase, Golden Land, blah blah blah, I set. You're like, bruh, I'm nuking those again a second time with Roaring Rooster because of Meow Meow. Because if any time your Prank Kid monsters would tribute their self to activate its effect during your opponent's turn, you just banish this instead. So you get 2 board wipes off each of your main boss monsters. And whenever your opponent negates and destroys them, they will always recur something. This will recur something from grave. He'll add one of your hand traps from grave to hand. He's nuts. 2 Rocket Rides, you have to play 2 at least. You play 1. Now, every time you want to go for the second one, you have to rely on a recycle effect. You can't rely on that all the time. So 2 minimum. Only 1 Weather Watcher is needed because you use it for a tempo swing, and you're always able to recycle it. It's not as necessary as Rocket Ride is. So 2-1 is a perfect ratio. The reason why I'm playing Giant Hand is because your standard Poly 2 Pranks combo summons this. You guys are wondering why I'm playing this over any other rank 4. Dinko Sekka, even though people, like some people aren't smart enough to side Dinko Sekka against this deck, but I played Prankids competitive. I topped with this deck too. So I really know how this deck works, and I know for a fact one thing that kills this deck is when your opponent drops a Dinko and you have a face down Pandemonium and a plan. So I summoned this to play around Dinko. I don't care if Dinko's not popular. I don't nobody's side decking it. I'm going to keep Giant Hand in my extra deck because I'm not letting my opponent get one up on me. I'm going to play smarter than them, and I'm going to put that Giant Hand on the field. So when they have the only way to really stop you from playing on your opponent's turn, because you could chain this immediately to the first card your opponent activates. They will never be able to put in a gate on board fast enough for you to not be able to activate Plan or Pandemonium first. Dinko's like the only way to shut this deck down, and because I know that and I know how this deck works, I play Giant Hand for Dinko. If it's not used on Dinko, it's just in the gate anyways. And then I play the Dweller, best rank 4 in the game. Totally awesome because Dropsies is actually an Aqua even though he's a crybaby. Then we have Rip Roaring Rooster. This card is super nice because its recursion adds any card. You can literally recur a Call By, a Hand Trap. If either you're recurring a Call By or Hand Trap, or the next best card is to add Instant Fusion or Polymerization, so you can go Wombo again. Because Poly going second, you go into access code like nobody's business and you just kill your opponent. So continuing access code, Appaloosa, because you can actually summon crazy boards. This deck, excuse me, is like a combo deck that you can still play mid-range because it has so much recursion. Every one of its effects that's not a boss monster all recur from grave. Doodle Doodle Doo and Bow Bark add from grave, and these two special from grave. Everything about the Prankids is resource management if you play it correctly. And notably, it's really important to have that because this deck burns out of steam so fast. So like, oh my goodness, it's just so amazing. But this card's so easy to make, guys, as well as access code, especially access code, because you can go, if you see your opponent doesn't really have much, you can go in phase, for example, Weather Watcher, because it's during your opponent's turn, not their main phase, just your opponent's turn. In phase Weather Watcher, bring back your 2 links and automatically link them into access code talker if you really wanted to play it that way. But no matter what, access code's always going to come out as 43 because I don't play link 3s like Unicorn. Then the 1 Bow Bark. This card lets you OTK your opponent and it's going to recur on your opponent's turn. This card's super strong. It's very aggressive. And then the 2 Meow Meows. Meow Meow's effect lets you replace one of your tributes for him instead, and then he's a link 1. That's what's most important. The only thing that's kind of sad, which isn't really that bad, is you can only link summon him once per turn, but you're only using him that once anyways. But the reason why you want to play 2 though is because you're always going to end up banishing 1 for his effect. You need the second one in case you need to start up a follow-up combo when you're on low resources or your opponent played through everything you had. You need to be able to go back into your combo again. basically, and how you're doing that. Normally, you use Bow Wow Bark and keep one of the Prankids just in case. You always want to keep one of the Prankids you added off Bow Wow so you can start your turn again with a second copy of Meow Meow. So I recommend 2 and not 1. You kind of just have to play 2. The side deck is a little interesting. 3 Nibiru's because I don't feel like maining it. I feel like Nibiru's not good against every deck. I'd rather just play it safe and play hand traps that I know that are good. Nibiru is strong against certain decks, but not every deck, so I just side deck it. Because this deck, I just prefer to play Ghost Mourner over Nibiru, because I know almost any deck I could Ghost Mourner, but a lot of decks either are going to not be able to be Nibiru'd, and some people can actually play under 4 summons, or they'll be able to put up an interruption for Nibiru before they even hit their 5th summon. So it's not always safe to main it, but when you're going second and you throw in more hand traps like Imperm, now you can have Nibiru plus Imperm, or like, you know, for example, Veiler or whatever it is. I play the 3 Lancias. Reason being is because Lancia stops evenly matched. When you don't open Totally Awesome, evenly matched can destroy your deck. It can just destroy it. If you don't have Lancia, your best bet is when they basically enter battle phase or like end it, for example, fuse off into Weather Washer and then activate your Prankids effects, but don't use this option to special summon, because as you see, they have 2 effects. You Foolish Burial and then you can special summon. So what you're going to do is summon Weather Washer. This is coming from a smart Prankids player. Use their effects to get the burn or the dump or the draw, but don't use the second option as special, because you're going to lose those evenly. So you're just going to burn them again, get another Foolish Burial, and when they evenly you keep Weather Washer, and then after that you have Weather Washer to tag out, and you're going to be able to build your resources back up by playing through the evenly. That's the only instance where you can play through evenly if you do that interaction I'm telling you to do. But other than that, Lancia is also really good against the Chaos deck and also the FTK deck. And also conveniently, it's good against Invoke, it's good against Eldritch, it's good against Zombies. It's really strong hand trap against a lot of strategies. Like Infernoids, even though that's random, that's rogue, it's really good against that too. Like, other things too that Lancia does is it stops call by. That's something that's really important, because if you do Battle Butler the second time and you tribute his self, or if you tribute Weather Washer, or if you tribute, you know, this, or Bow Wow, they are susceptible to Call by the Grave. But if your opponent activates Call by the Grave, they have to target it for cost first. When you chain Lancia, it resolves backwards, so Lancia prevents them from banishing first before Called by resolves, and now because they can't banish, they can't resolve the full effect of Called by. So conveniently, another thing Lancia does is it plays through Called by, and Called by destroys this deck. I'm telling you guys that right now. I'm telling you, I really know how to play this deck, and I knew that. That's why I main decked Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion, because Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion stops Called by. You guys are going to think I'm crazy, but actually, no, I'm not. I really understand this deck, and I know its weaknesses. Lancia, for one of the bigger weaknesses, Giant Hand for Dinko. A smart player plays through his deck's weaknesses and finds a supplement or a circumvention for that weakness. Droll's also for the FTK deck, and any deck that gets bodied by Droll, like the mainstream and Demion list, I Droll them and destroy them next turn. Twin Twister's better than Cyclone. The reason being is because you can actually afford to discard. You can always hit multiple cards off of it. Another thing too is cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance can really hurt this deck when you have a strong hand. Floodgates in general. Another Floodgate that's really strong against this deck is Goes In, or even Rivalry, because all your monsters are different types and different attributes. But I will say, with those cards, you can play around them to an extent, because you'll have to swarm into Fansies or Doodle Doodle Doos if your opponent hits you on wins. So you can do it to an extent, but it kind of sucks. So this is also for those Floodgates, and you really want to be prepared. It could easily be Cyclone, because you need back row removal that's not evenly, because of a Pointer of the Red Lotus. It's a card that can snipe you evenly, and I just like this better, because the decks that Cyclone's good against, Twin Twisters is actually better against them, and it's kind of underrated because people are choosing Cyclone over it. And I feel like the only time Cyclone's mandatory is when you're playing against Orcus, because obviously Dengirsu protects from Twin. But other than that, I play two more hand traps in the form of Imperm. So if I play it against the combo deck or the FTK deck, I can side in 2, 4, 7, 10 more hand traps. And the evenlies are mainly for back row. Smart players side into Pointers. This is just for other instances when it's like a Sapphire Pass, like Altergeist and things of that nature. Even if they negate it, I'd rather they negate this than the only card I have for my combo. And also for, because that's pretty much the deck list, you guys. I don't have replays yet. I just built it. Because this card just became available recently. But I will say this, is that when you want to side against those combo decks, you don't have to worry about siding too many hand traps. I'm going to tell you right now, this is how you're going to side. You're going second, side out 1 call by. Side out set rotation, Side out the recycling plan. That's already 3 extra side outs. Side out one of your plans. That's 4. Side out one of your pranks and your plans. So that's 5. And then if you look at the hand trap count that you have, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you could put in a Nibiru. So that's 5 already that you could side in. If you really want to take it even further, for example, you could side out 1 or 2 polys, because keep in mind, once you're siding in all these hand traps, you're decreasing consistency, so poly 2 pranks becomes less reliable. So really, you could easily do this: cut 1 or 2 polys and rely on your basically your pandemonium and your normal PRANKIDS combos. So this is what you could do to really just make sure you're bodying combo every single time. This deck can probably play more hand traps in this main than almost any deck I can think of, because you could side out 1, 2, you could even side out the call buys if you really want to, but I would keep them just in case of like Ash or anything like that, because you're normally going to body their combos. So you could side out 1, 2, 3 even, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's already 7, right? You could put in 3 Nibirus, the 2 Imperms, and then the 2 Drolls if it's the FTK. So if the FTK deck, you're adding 7 to your 9, you have 16 hand traps. How on earth are you going to, that's going to have to be crazy. If you're putting in 16 hand traps in a 41 card deck, that's almost half your deck. You're almost guaranteeing that you open minimum 2 hand traps, and I would say minimum 2. You could really open 3. And another thing too is what I would do, knowing that Ghost Mourner is once per turn, I'd cut 1 Ghost Mourner, and then I would be siding in 2 Lancias, 2 Drolls, 3 Nibirus, and the 2 Imperms. Like, I'm telling you guys, this deck, the way you side for combo is really crazy, because you can play basically like a Zodiac player, put in all these hand traps, and just keep your 1 card combo. It's just so nice, you guys. You could even take all the polys out and say, forget generic summons, I'm going for PRANKIDS only, and keep in the 3 Pandemoniums as a way to start your combo off fusing. If you want to start your combo off fusing, now when you have fusion, so let's say you hand trap your opponent 3 times, and your cards left in hand are Pandemonium, 2 pranks, you activate Pandemonium, you can already bait and negate. Then you just normal your PRANKID and do your standard combo, which is crazy. So this deck, when it comes to side decking, it's actually pretty easy when you're going against combo. When you're going against control decks and things of that nature, you don't really need that many hand traps. All you're going to do is do the same exact thing I told you, but except now, you're just putting in the 3 Evenlies and then the 2 Twin Twisters, and you're calling it a day. Also, things that Lancia stops besides the evenly match is even in weird instances, it can stop like Balings from protecting. Like, it just does so much. Lancia is like a really strong hand trap, you guys. It's super strong. But that's the deck list, you guys. There's a lot of insight. That's why the deck profile is so long. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna say a quick prayer and then I'm out of here. Alright, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Jesus. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and the power forever. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray. Hallelujah. Amen. One last thing that I will say is the PRANKID combo is a full 1 card combo if you don't resolve Roxy, so that means you only get 3 swarms. But if you want to resolve all 4 of your PRANKID names and you still don't have a card, something that you can do to make it still a 1 card combo, you can do this. I'm going to show you guys this, and this is the end of the video. Normal, any prank that's not Roxy's, link in the Meow Meow, special another prank, link those 2 pranks into into Doodle Doodle Doo, swarm into another one that's not Roxy's. Now guess what? Doodle Doodle Doo is adding a card from your deck to your hand. Then you can tribute him, and you can use his effect to add 2 more. And basically, the card you added off him is obviously Pandemonium. Now you can resolve Pandemonium with the PRANKID that's on your field, and one that you added from your grave to your hand to go into Rocket Ride. And then you're going to resolve Roxy's to banish the second PRANKID that you added off of the Doodle Doodle Doo to draw. So PRANKIDs are always going to be a 1 card combo no matter what, as long as you're smart enough to know what you're doing with your resources. If you do it mainstream and you go on YouTube and watch somebody's channel and see their combo, if you go off of memorization and basically go into that autopilot mode, you're never going to understand the deck better. You have to play it yourself and not just pick up a couple combos you see online and then think you're going to play this deck. You got to learn how to play this deck yourself. So nobody's going to be able to help you to master the deck. People can only help you with getting good knowledge on how it works. But at the end of the day, you guys have to play this deck to learn how to do it the way, like, not necessarily how I do it, because there's other good PRANKID players, but I really will say that as long as I've been playing this deck, I gotta say, bro, high key, I do know what I'm doing when it comes to this deck, and I really hope you guys give this deck a try because it's super duper fire. It's a really good deck. Peace out, you guys.